Welcome to Mobile Growth Summit 2018. Thank y'all so much for coming. We've done a little bit of research on the conference attendees this year. Someone here is from New York. They have an iPhone 7 with the latest OS. This morning on Spotify, they listened to their Good Shit playlist. Afterwards, they use Headspace to check in mentally and get in some meditation. I guess this made them a little bit hungry because then they got a massive breakfast burrito off of Eat24. Maybe it wasn't massive, but probably. Then they got to the conference using Uber. Now, is this starting to sound familiar? Anybody? All right, well, luckily for all of you, I am not actually a stalker. This is our senior product specialist, Jolie Beretta, who was actually on our mobile attribution panel yesterday. So let's quickly give a round of applause for Jolie. All right, so what if I was telling you that this exact and granular level of data, you can get it in a matter of seconds by using a tool we call the Audience Builder. And I'll go through that in just a moment. My name is Katie Matting, and I'm Global Product Director at Adjust. I started at Adjust about 4 years ago, and I was probably, many of you, account manager. That's where I started. I then moved to integration engineering, so really bringing in business as well as tech to our product roadmap. For those of you who are unfamiliar with Adjust, we're a mobile measurement company. What does that mean? Basically, if you have a mobile app, we're able to track your marketing campaigns for thousands of different networks, including the likes of Facebook, Google, Snapchat, you name it. We then take this attribution data and we pair it with App Store insights, in-app analytics, and probably most importantly these days, fraud rejection. So a little bit of housekeeping. Today I'm going to walk you through why we even created the Audience Builder, how it helps you from a targeting perspective, and then I'll go through a quick case study we did with Runtastic, one of our European clients. I'll open it up at the end to some Q&A. All right, so why did we create the Audience Builder? You've developed an app, and this is great because you spent tons of time, money, and resources actually trying to acquire new users. Well, more and more time is being spent in mobile. Moreover, 90% of the time in mobile is actually spent within an app. However, the sad truth of the matter is that 95% of all users will actually abandon your app within the first 30 days. 58% of users will churn within the first month. And finally, a whopping 62% of your users will use your app less than 11 times. Now, I know we're all thinking it, I'll just go ahead and say it. This is not a viable business model. But why do the numbers look like this? Why haven't we perfected user acquisition to go against just more users and towards better users? So ultimately, we started asking ourselves the question, and it really came down to targeting. It turns out that a lot of our clients, to get really great targeting, said, we have to share everything. Either that, or if we didn't have data to share, we had to wait quite a bit of time for the algorithms to really kick in so we could get optimal targeting. And all of us know time means money. I was recently working with a client who was launching their app for the first time ever. So not only was it a new app without any existing audience, but it was also in a totally new industry, fintech. They're really excited to get their campaigns up and running, but unfortunately for them, the conversation halted when they started talking to networks. Their options basically surrounded around CPM and CPC campaigns, all at super high prices. On top of this, a variety of networks let them know that it was going to take a minimum of 3 months before they'd really be able to tell the right audience for this customer. Now, what didn't really make sense was why are you paying such a high CPM for users that, one, may not even engage with your app, and two, may not become a quality user? Why is that the case? Now, on the flip side of this, you may have already had an app that's been around for a while, so you have tons of existing users. And in this case, you're constantly asked to share it all. Now, my point of view on this isn't that you shouldn't share, period, right? there's certain networks out there that actually have incredible optimization functionality when you start sharing some of those in-app activities. However, a lot of our clients will actually just share blindly. A network says, hey, I want all of your in-app events, I want all of your in-app purchases along with the associated revenue. And before blinking an eye, they go ahead and share it. Now, while that network may be using it for optimization purposes, you really need to make sure that you're protecting yourself here. And that when you share this data, you're sharing it because it's getting used for optimization to target those quality users. Now, on top of that, even if you can share data, you may not want to, because I think all of us in the room here know that privacy is now first priority. How many of y'all sitting here are familiar with GDPR? Can I get a raise of hands? Okay, that should be a lot more of you because it's May 2018 this year, so make sure if you don't already know about it, come speak with me later or look it up on Google because it's going to affect all of us. And unfortunately, what we found out from our clients was that if they wanted to remain private, they couldn't get the same level of optimization or targeting. So they had to give up one to get the other. These situations happen to our clients time and time again, and they're frustrated. They either had to share it all or wait until their campaign may no longer be relevant. We get it. So this is why we created the Audience Builder. Basically, it allows you to target your users immediately, effectively, and without having to share everything. So I like to think of the Audience Builder like a candy store. Countless options that will all make your life better. And speaking of these options, this is where you can pull in really cool things like cross-promotion, push notifications, whatever you may want to do. But it's really easy, it's really fast, and most importantly, it's really effective. So bear with me here. I'm going to walk y'all through a dashboard example. I'll try to make it as painless as possible. But here's a real-life case of how you could use your audiences. Let's say, for example, your app has recently updated to have this really cool checkout feature. As a part of this, to hit your bonus for the next quarter, you've got to drive a lot more checkouts. So you're going to create a low-hanging fruit audience. Basically, users that were really close to doing this, but for some reason just didn't check out yet. So what you're going to do is first you're going to select your app. And for all of you gaming clients out here, this part is really important. Because as many of you know, if you want to get up and running with the network, you have to provide an exclusion list. This condition right here is the only thing you need to do to pull that list. Basically, it'll be all of your existing users that have ever had a session within your app, and you can get it in a matter of seconds. But for this example, we're going to select Adjust Insights and filter it down a little more. The next thing we're going to do is select US users, because we know that, on average, we spend more. We'll then filter this down to users who've actually made a purchase in the past, right? So ultimately, users who've spent more than $50 in the past are likely to spend again. We want to make sure these users are also still engaged, right? That they're not actual lapsed users. So we're only going to look at users who've had a session within the past week. And then finally, we're going to look at all users who have added something to their cart, so showing that intent, but have yet to actually check out. There we go. Once we have our audience, then we can also do some more cool things. And in this case, we want to target users two different ways. For half of the group, we want to give them a 10% off coupon. For the other half, we actually want to give them free shipping and really kind of do some A/B testing here to see which one works better. So this is why we've split the audience in half. Next, we can use someone like Google to go out and do the actual targeting. And these links that you see here are dynamic. What that means is they're updated in real time based on whether users have met or not met these conditions. So, what does this mean? If your super techie grandma gets served the 10% off coupon, and because it's a coupon, we know your grandma actually uses it, so she finally checks out. Well, she will no longer be a part of this audience. Sorry, Grandma. Now I'm going to go into our Runtastic case study and kind of some of those real-life benefits. Runtastic, for those of you who aren't familiar, was founded in 2009. They have an innovative portfolio of health and fitness apps. They have 210 million downloads and 110 million registered users. So while they had all of this incredible growth, they unfortunately met a few challenges, and we're going to focus on the first one. Runtastic offers a bunch of what we call one-off apps, so apps that focus on one specific area. For example, they have a six-pack abs app, which I have been using. You guys can ask me about the results later. But basically, Runtastic wanted to take all these disparate apps and drive those users to download and subscribe their premium app called Runtastic Results. So, as a part of this challenge, we asked ourselves a few questions. First, when we use the audience builder, could we acquire users more cheaply? Next, could we get subscribers more cheaply? On top of that, can we just get more subscriptions? And then finally, could we get our return on ad spend within the first 30 days? So, to start this off, we obviously needed a point of reference. And this is where we created a benchmark campaign. So what Runtastic did was they had been using our Facebook module, which basically automatically in real time sends all of their data directly to Facebook. And while this integration is great, this campaign was set up based on the fact that Runtastic had already been doing that. If they hadn't have been, it would have taken a lot more time. So what they did was they went into Facebook and selected the six-pack abs app and all users who had installed it in the past 180 days. They then created this really awesome video asset to drive users to actually download Runtastic Results. Now, while the campaign actually had pretty great performance, males actually outperformed females, which was definitely apparent. My husband was actually targeted during this campaign. I can't tell you his regimen after he downloaded, but that's neither here nor there. However, when we dug into the numbers, registration to purchase, and purchase, mind you, is that subscription, actually remained the same. So one of their most critical KPIs was flat. There was no change. So this was where we brought in the audience builder. And what we did here was create an audience within Adjust that basically included the six-pack abs app, all users who had installed it in the past 180 days. We then filtered it a bit more. So we included all users who triggered a pretty active engagement. So in this case, it was the number of times they'd done a certain crunch. On top of that, we included all users who had actually had a session in the past 14 days, so the past 2 weeks. We created that audience in a matter of seconds, and then we linked it directly into Facebook audiences. Now, once again, this is dynamic, so the moment these users met or didn't meet this condition, they were pulled away from Facebook. Now, the results of this campaign were starkly different. Not only did we decrease cost per purchase, but we also increased registration to purchase. On top of that, we got our return on ad spend in the first 7 days. So taking this to real numbers, we actually increased male registration to purchase by 9 times, and for females by 6 times. In that 30-day window for return on ad spend, we increased it 241%. And then finally, we decreased cost per purchase by 51%. Pretty incredible what some extra segmentation can do. So I know I've talked through a few different things about the audience builder, but just some quick recap here of kind of the main highlights. With audience builder, you can get all of your advertising IDs as well as push tokens immediately. On top of that, you can do some awesome creative testing by splitting down your audience in up to 10 different groups if you want. You can get all of your historical data within a matter of minutes. I know that for some of you out there with a great BI team, you always have to put in the request, maybe wait a week, and then you finally get your data list. So this is a huge pain point. On top of that, they're dynamic, right? They're updating in real time, so you can do real-time targeting. It also gives you the control. So while you're sharing these lists of users, you're deciding what you want to share about them. All you're sending is a list of either device IDs or push tokens. You don't have to say these are all of my users who spent more than $50. That's totally up to you. And then finally, you're getting smarter with your targeting because you're not just saying, hey, target anyone out there. You're saying target users who are my high-value users or who look like them. So hopefully that gave you guys a little bit to chew on around the Audience Builder. And I am now going to open it up for Q&A. So let me know if any of y'all have questions overall on kind of focusing on those quality users, targeting, or the Audience Builder.
What's the advantage of using the just like Audience Builder versus the like platforms that like lookalike audiences or UACs or just any, like most ad networks just have their own like kind of audience builders? What's the advantage here?
Yeah, so I would say two different points to that. One, you guys are probably familiar with in Facebook for the value-based lookalikes. And that was actually the second challenge that we did with Runtastic. What's really interesting is, yes, there are certain networks out there that can do some pretty incredible targeting, like Facebook, like Google. And within those platforms, while they can do some great targeting, your attribution provider that tracks potentially more events than that will be able to basically give them a much more targeted list. So ultimately, that was kind of the difference. The first campaign was using lookalike. The one with Audience Builder was just much more targeted. And so that's kind of the question there. The second piece is the fact that, yes, while Facebook and Google and maybe a handful of other partners can do this, a lot of other networks can't. And you're also going to be paying a premium to get that level of targeting. With this tool, you can now use pretty much whatever network you want that has targeting abilities to go out and get those users, which hopefully will affect your bottom line because you're going to be paying less.